Olympia, I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for thinking of me.
Of course, you've been a bucket list guest for me for a really long time, and I so admire everything you're doing in fashion and obviously your incredible hair. So I'm so glad you're here. I have not done this before where someone else is in studio and I'm in LA.
Okay.
I know a lot of podcasts do it like frequently, but so this is a first-time experience, and honestly, I love it. This is great.
This is a first for me too.
I'm like paging New York.
I know.
It's amazing. So I always love to open up this podcast by asking how you get dressed every day. What's your ethos when you're putting on clothes that make you feel good?
Honestly, it's so dependent on my mood and dependent on who I'm seeing, what I have planned for the day, where I'm going after work. Like if I'm on set, I try to be comfortable, you know, but I obviously want to wear something chic. So it's like it might be a suit, there might be a flat shoe, there's usually a blazer and some cashmere involved. If I have to do a presentation, I'm wearing something specific. If I'm having a casual day, I kind of keep it loose. There's, you know, if I have something after work, it might be a little bit more feminine. I might add on some jewelry. And then like, I mean, I'm a mom too, so like time has a lot to do with it. Like there's often 5 or 10 minutes to actually get dressed in the morning. So it didn't used to be like that. I used to have so much time, and that was really like a fun process for me. And now it's like, you know, how fast can I get ready? So it's not always about mood. It's sometimes just about speed.
I like what you were saying about like comfortable and chic. And I feel like something I've been getting asked so often, whether it's in my DMs or like people responding to the show, is what's a comfortable shoe that you can wear from day to night that like looks elevated and isn't just like a sneaker or a flat?
I go with a block heel personally. I feel like I'm huge on the block heel. I feel like whether it's an open-toed sandal or if it's a closed-toe for fall, it gives you that little bit of height, and it looks great with a jean or with a trouser. But I mean, I live in New York. You walk everywhere here, and so the block heel is like it can take you places. And then also like an Oxford or a loafer or like a lug sole type of shoe, like a lug sole Oxford, like something that gives you like it can still give you a little bit of height, but it has that traction, you know, on the street. I mean, for me, like totally. The comfort thing is really important, but I also feel like, yeah, you want something that's going to create a nice silhouette, and like sometimes you need leg length, which is why you go for the block heel, or you add like a thicker, chunkier sole, which helps a lot too.
I've been wearing a lot of pointed toe shoes, and I feel like a pointed toe flat makes me look like it elongates me. Like I'm 5'4", and so I always need a little bit of that height.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like it's a good shoe for you to wear. It's like a business meeting, and then I can wear it to dinner and feel like I'm still a little bit elevated. It's better than like a rounded toe flat, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the shape of a shoe can really change your leg. I feel like when you go for a round toe, I like sort of like more of an almond shape because it also like elongates your leg, just like a pointy toe shoe does. And it's like sometimes an ankle strap can cut you off, but it can also make your ankles look great if you have a pointy toe shoe attached to it.
Oh my God, I'm never in a wrap sandal. It just, for my legs, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it really depends on, everybody's different, right? You have to wear clothes that suit you.
Of course. In learning more about you, I learned that your mom worked at Club Monaco.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear, in my fashion experience, my mom was so integral to my experience growing up and falling in love with fashion. I remember being in her closet and trying on makeup and running around in her shoes. And she wasn't in fashion, but I can't imagine how incredible it was for you to have a mom in fashion. What was that like?
It was very inspiring, for sure. I mean, I really looked up to her as somebody who, you know, like was working and was going off every day looking great and, you know, being a leader. And, you know, at the time in the, you know, the early 80s, mid 80s in Canada, like she was bringing in really interesting people into Toronto to work at the brand. And so she would have like designers that she would bring in from London or from France or like local talent from Canada or people from the States. And she had this very interesting group of creatives around her. And for me, that was always very inspiring, was like, you know, I didn't have a nanny. So like after school, or if there were days off, I would go and I would spend that time at her office. And like a lot of these girls like taught me how to draw. They taught me how to fashion sketch. And just being around them, whether they were doing like visual, like window display or photo shoots or, you know, like actually sketching, there was just like so much inspiration there. And for me, it was always like very, very interesting. And they were always having a lot of fun because I think it was, at the time, it was a startup, you know, when I was really young. And so it was just watching them kind of like figure out how to do this thing in fashion was like so exciting to me.
Is there anything you learned from that time that you still kind of keep with you today?
I mean, they all worked so hard. And so I think that is definitely something that stuck with me, was like that this it's not necessarily the easiest job, but it's fun. And they were very passionate about what they did. And so watching that happen, like seeing the skill set of these designers, like who could sketch incredibly and who could, make something out of nothing, like that skill set and sort of the hours that they put in really, and like the time that they put behind it, was always like, yeah, something that I feel like that's just how I thought that it worked,
What year did you start at J.Crew?
2010.
And you've been there, well, you left for a little bit, but you've been there pretty much ever since.
Yeah. I left for 3 years and then came back 3 years ago.
I think it's hard in fashion. You don't hear a lot of people rise in the ranks of one company. I feel like fashion, I mean, look at like the landscape of designers today. Yeah. Everyone is getting thrown around.
Yeah.
Different brands. It's really rare to find someone who like connects with the brand and their imagery and like the soul of it and kind of rises in the ranks through that.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about what that took and what that experience was like for anyone who's listening and wants to be in fashion.
Yeah, I mean, J.Crew is just a very interesting brand because it's, it's accessible in so many ways, but it's also very fashion driven and fashion forward. And so when I started there, it was during like the Jenna Lyons, Mickey Drexler era, and like it was all about fashion. Like there was obviously classics, but it was like there was a lot of rigor put around the design team, and could they sketch, like how it was like the more out there, the more exciting things you were doing, the better, really. So as much as you were getting this like very, very incredible experience in like quite a corporate culture, you also got this sort of like fashion point of view. And so the balance between those two is, I think, what's caused me and a lot of people at the brand to stay a long time, is that there's this sense of nurturing like those like highly creative people, but also teaching them how to work in a corporate environment, which is can be really great too, and be really, really healthy. So that's probably a big part of it. And then also, throughout the course of my career, I moved categories so many times. I started with knits, and then I was doing pajamas, and I was doing swim, and then I started doing sweaters, and, I worked on special projects and collaborations. So, there was always something to do, and there was always the next challenge, and, had a great group of peers and great leaders to look up to. So it was pretty easy to stay.
Yeah, I'm sure being there during the Jenna era was like a masterclass.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Insane. What was that era like?
Fun, but like pressure, but fun, like it was
right.
like there was the expectations were high for sure, because we were producing really quality stuff, but it was always fun because it was always about creativity. So and there was a lot of openness to young talent, which I think you don't find everywhere. I think it's like, it wasn't like if you were a younger designer that you would be overlooked because you weren't senior enough. Like if you had a great idea, there was a voice in the room for you. And so for me, like I love what I do, and I always have, and I'm very, very passionate, and I put a lot of time and energy into what I do. So, when I was trying to sort of like, rise through the ranks, I guess you would say, I would put in extra time. I would do special projects. I would do things that weren't necessarily asked of me, or put extra work in to sort of hopefully be seen and be able to sort of, maybe try a new category next season.
I love that you bounced around a lot, because I had a similar experience in college, freshly out of college, and looking back on it now, felt so important to what I do now. And even just participating in fashion, it's really like not a one-track industry. Like you really have to have such a wide range of skill sets, like the most random things. I'm so glad that I like studied PR and had a job in entertainment, took writing courses, because I feel like today it all just intertwines in such a weird way.
Absolutely. I mean, even before J.Crew, I had a period of time where I was kind of trying to figure out, I'm Canadian too. So like, how do I stay in the States? What kind of jobs do I take? And so I was working.
You're like, who's going to make me stay here?
Yeah, exactly. It's a little more complicated, because you have to sort of find where you want to work. But, I was illustrating for small brands. I was styling a lot, and like all of that, I was painting because I went to art school. And so all of those different things definitely helped who I am now today, and like sort of the skill set that I bring to my job. And I definitely went through moments at that moment in my life where I was kind of like, what am I doing? Like moments of sort of insecurity and not really being sure, like, am I going down the right path? But in the end, those things all benefited for my future career, but I just don't think I realized it at the time. But now I see that, the diversity of experience was super crucial to sort of where I am.
I feel like J.Crew has really taken massive leaps and bounds in the past few months, probably a little bit longer than that. And it's really reflective of, I think, what women want to wear today in America. Mm-hmm. And I find that J.Crew has always defined American fashion. Yeah. I remember growing up and J.Crew was like the thing. Mm-hmm. Like I remember being in high school and just it was like the thing to aspire towards. I was the girl who was like going into J.Crew and buying the like bright colored earrings and thinking that I was the talk of the town. Like I had the coolest outfit on. And I remember I had this one sweater that was like a cable knit short sleeve and it had like a jeweled collar. Yeah. And I was Blair Waldorf. That was me.
I love it.
I was her. And I'd love to hear from you.
I can see that.
Yeah. I still get it today. I would love to hear in today's world, like what you think American fashion is at the helm of a brand that is so definitive of what people want to wear.
I mean, I think it's different, but it's the same still. Like there's this sense of this classic nature of the brand that will never go away. And I think that it's the reason that the brand is so great is because it's rooted in this classic American style that's sort of, we're a 40-year-old brand. So we are, we definitely take a part in defining what that is. And then, the present and the future of it feels just this idea of, for me, there's this idea of the multi-generational aspect of it is like, you can have these classic pieces, but they really cross generations and, you can wear them for a very long time. And there's a longevity into it because it's a great quality and it's also, timeless. So for me, I think American style is that it is sort of timeless. And the word classic goes along with that, but it's this timelessness of just sort of like, there's an ease of dressing. It's like this idea of American sportswear, like in the traditional sense where there's this just like it's very easy and it's very casual. It's very relaxed, but it's still polished and pulled together. It is a classic brand and it's part of the American zeitgeist, but there's also this element with J.Crew that's sort of whimsical, like a little bit of surprise and delight.
Yes,
and it's been defined differently through the eras. Like I think in the 80s and the 90s, you could say it was more like what people were doing when they were in the catalog on location, like, picking up a crab or shaving on the beach, like sort of these like funny, quirky things that were happening. And then, through the next era, it kind of went into sort of like, what was happening in the catalog, like someone was in a ball gown on the top of a hill, but they were also wearing sequins and like the sweater you talk about with the collar and the big earrings, there was this like sort of whimsy in the actual pieces of clothing. And so for me, it feels like this next generation of the brand is sort of merging those two worlds and moving it forward. But our customer and myself included, we all really like that. It's not just classics, it's not just the best basics, but those are foundational. But then you also have this like surprise and delight, like those things that you're like, oh, I didn't expect that from this brand, but now it makes sense. Like I see how that's paired together and it's cool and it's personal.
I mean, I think J.Crew for me was the masterclass in the high-low.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, I remember seeing the catalogs as a kid and saying, oh, I can wear that sequin skirt with a cashmere sweater. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be like an embellished top too. Or yeah. I even think of Jenna back in the day wearing, an incredible feather skirt with a denim jacket.
Yeah,
like J.Crew really defined what it means to dress high-low and express yourself in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I also feel like the brand has been synonymous with prep. Do you think that preppy style in American fashion today is dead?
Not at all. No, I think it's just been reinterpreted, with the next generation. I feel like for every generation it's different. And now it's like people have taken it on in a different way and it's almost like subversive. Like I think prep feels like it's for everybody or anybody now who wants to play with it. And I think that the way people integrate it into their wardrobes is very cool. Like I don't consider myself preppy, but I think that the way that, I could mix a polo with, a pair of low-rise jeans, like it just feels different and cool. So I like the idea of those pieces mixed with, the modern sensibility of dressing.
I agree. I feel like preppy has seeped its way into every like style of dressing with its own kind of unique code.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool.
I was shopping the other day and I like reached for this jacket with a collar. And my friend was like, you're so preppy. And I was like, I would not consider myself preppy.
Yeah.
But I think it's like those little nods to like classic American dressing that people still heavily associate with preppy. But I don't think that preppy has its own like genre anymore.
For sure. I also associate it it's not a natural association necessarily, but like with the idea of uniform, you know, like
Yes.
like the schoolboy blazer and like these types of things that are kind of like, you know, a knee-high sock, even a loafer that are like uniform based, because there's something about a uniform that's like, you know, like interesting and easy and stable and youthful. But when you mix it with other pieces, it can kind of create something really interesting and high-low or ironic.
Did you have a uniform growing up at any of your schools?
I did, yeah.
So did I. What was it? I bet you I could so... There has to be a correlation between you being the queen of J.Crew and understanding uniform well.
Probably. Yeah, I went to a Scottish school in Canada.
Okay.
And
Give us more.
I wore a kilt.
No way.
For 12 years, I wore a green wool kilt with bloomers, wool knee-high socks, penny loafers, a white button-down, and a tie, and a piped blazer.
We're going to have to source a photo of this. I will find it. I'm making it my personal mission.
For 12 years, yeah.
I had plaid mini skirts, which we had like a rule where you had to put your hand down, like your arm along your side.
For sure.
And if it was lower than your arm, you were like...
Oh, yeah, cut. Ours too. Same thing.
Mm-hmm. We had short sleeve, collared shirts, different colors, red, blue, white, kind of Americana.
Amazing.
I wore knee-high socks with sneakers every day. And then I think as I got into high school, where I like really started to love fashion, is like I would come in with like a giant earring or like a purse as my backpack.
They didn't make you take it off?
I think I got in trouble maybe once or twice, and then I just kept doing it. And I think they were like, "What's the harm in her bringing a purse as a backpack?"
I was
like, "I'm not hurting anybody."
I love it.
I want to pivot to your Instagram a little bit because I will never forget. It was like fresh out of COVID, right when you started at J.Crew. And you guys did a party with the A-list at San Vicente Bungalows.
Uh-huh.
And I remember, like, the whispers about this function were like, "Do you know Olympia? Have you seen her? Have you seen her style? Have you seen her Instagram?" And I was like, "What is happening?" And then I saw your Instagram, and I was like, "Oh, I totally get it. I totally get it." Your Instagram for me is such a source of inspiration in so many ways. I love the way you blend color. I love the way you get dressed every day. But I also feel so inspired seeing you mood board on there. Like, understanding the references and how they come to life for you it's incredible. If you guys listening don't follow her yet, you have to go follow her. It's truly so great. So I want to hear a little bit about your mood boarding process and what that's like, because I've seen you post a few and you really pull such distinctive references. Like, not sure there's like the OG J.Crew catalogs on there, and I can see you're really bringing that up, but it can be like a color or like a beach that you went to so many years ago. Like, talk to us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, storytelling always comes through imagery. That's how I know how to tell stories. So imagery for me is like the most important part of the process. And I think it goes back to just like even, you know, being a kid and going through all my mom's magazines, and she'd bring home like Italian Vogue and French Vogue and Casa Vogue and Bazaar and Elle and all these. And I just like, I still have the memories of those images, and I still have a lot of those images that I've kept from over the years. And so I think at that point I started to understand sort of how vital that was to, you know, to the industry as, you know, as a big part of sort of the expression of a brand or of a campaign or an editorial. And then, you know, a lot of it comes from personal photos that I take. I take a lot of pictures. I go to a lot of art galleries. I have a lot of vintage books. I feel like I'm always scouring for the pictures that people don't have, because now with social media and, you know, there's just so many images that we all kind of recirculate. And so when you find something that you haven't seen before or that you haven't seen in a very long time, it's like, you know, for me, it's always like the holy grail. It's very exciting. Even going through the old J.Crew catalogs, because there's so many of them that we have in the archive that haven't really seen the light of day for quite a few years. And so when I find a picture, I'm like, oh my God, they have that polka dot Bermuda short. Like, and we have that, like, it's so crazy. Yeah. So it's just part of it is that search for images. And then the building of the mood board is like, it's very much an instinctual, organic process for me. I think like as a designer, I rely heavily on my instinct. And so when I start to put things up, it's like, you know, it's like, and then there's two types of mood board that I do now, because one of the mood boards that I do for the brand and also for the people that follow me and the customer is kind of like after we shoot something, then I sort of put it up on the wall and try to recreate the story to sort of express to people what I created looks like. But then there's also the mood boarding that happens way far in advance of a season, like at the concept stage when we're kind of like building the collection. And that's where you're kind of like, oh, there's this painting and it has magenta in it. And then I actually have this picture of this flower that also has magenta. And then there's a little bit of yellow and that looks so good off of this chair that also has yellow, but it also has, a bit of mint in it. And then you kind of just start to build that. And that's really how you create your stories and your palettes, is through, or that's how I do it and my team does it, is we do it through these images.
And that's how the collections start.
Yeah.
That's like step one for you of how you're going to bring something to life.
Yeah. And I think after that, sometimes before, like sometimes we'll have an idea in our head, but oftentimes after it'll be like, oh, there's this beautiful photo of the ocean and then there's a picture of, Steve McQueen wearing a striped t-shirt, and then it becomes like, then we call it the new wave, like after, and then it becomes this whole like, winter nautical expression, but it's sort of, it's always a little bit different, but you kind of just come up with these capsules based off of images and ideas. And designers, they're all like, we're all collectors of images. That's just something that we all do. So, I do it on my own and I also do it with my team, which is really great.
It's kind of like fashion archaeology.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like you're like digging up from the past and reinterpreting, and that's really cool.
Yeah. And then there's also like when we get to the stage where we have to actually shoot our own imagery, like how do we make it feel like that? How do we not make it like shiny and new, but also make it have that tone of nostalgia and of, a lot of these images that we all pour over, from film images from the 80s and the 90s, 70s even.
I wonder if you could pinpoint something that you feel has been integral to the virality of J.Crew recently. Because for me, even hearing what you're saying just now, the nostalgia, that feeling that it feels familiar, but in a way that's very emotional. I've seen so many videos of J.Crew on TikTok, people being like, guys, look at J.Crew. Like it is so, so, so good. And I wonder if there's something that you find you can attribute that to.
I mean, I think it's a combination. For me, I feel like as I said, imagery is so important. So I would say that's a big part of it. Like we're really trying to create a look and a feeling and a spirit that feels like that like classic American brand that is J.Crew and of those old catalog days. But I think also I would attribute people's love for the brand at this particular moment to the product, because I think that we're actually making clothes that everybody can buy, everybody wants to buy, that grandmothers, daughters, mothers, children, like everyone. It kind of, if you walk into our store in Spring Street or that we just opened or any other store, like you really can find something for everybody, which is great. And so, and it's not just basics. It's like there's like, beautiful linen pieces, and then there's like gorgeous gauzy cotton dresses with eyelet and a gold laminated skirt. And, you have sort of like all of these incredible pieces. So I think that's, for me, that's a really big part of the brand. And that's something that's very important to me as a designer, is that like we have a really great price point that is accessible, and the quality is quite good. Like it's really beautiful. We worked so hard on making the quality amazing. And we have these talented designers that design every piece by hand. And so like that I feel like shows up in the clothes when you buy the clothes, that you can really see that craft in it. And, we are addressing classics, but we're also addressing sort of like what's going on in the zeitgeist fashion wise too. So you can really find those amazing pieces from us as well.
Yeah, I feel like you really brought the brand up to speed.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, it's funny hearing you say like a multi-generational interest in the brand, because I actually remember Jenna was on the show 3 years ago,
awesome.
And she actually sat right where you're sitting and said something really similar, that she had a story where she was somewhere and 3 different generations were wearing the exact same sweater. And she was like, that's what it's all about. And I think that's why people just have that emotional connection to it. And for me, fashion is so emotional. It's what you put on every day. It's what you feel good in, and it's how you express yourself. And Absolutely. If you don't have an emotional connection with that piece, it's just not, I don't feel like it resonates.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If there was someone who you could choose to be the face of J.Crew today, who would it be?
It would never be one person. I feel like women are, as a female designing for women, like women are so dynamic. And it's interesting because like my Instagram has definitely become a place where I've learned a lot about women and our customer, because people talk to me like directly through DM. So people ask me all the time, like, I'm a stay-at-home mom and I want to look really chic, but I don't need to wear a suit. And I need to be comfortable, but I want to look good. Like, what do I wear? Or, I'm a lawyer and I have this thing that I have to do, or I'm doing a big presentation, or whatever it is. So I think that like the idea that I wouldn't want to put one face on the brand, because I think the brand is about all these different types of women. And, you know, so I think we try really hard in our campaigns or our editorials to sort of feature, you know, everyone from Lauren Hutton to Tracy Ellis Ross to Florence Pugh to, you know, all these incredible different models, to be able to sort of express that we are a brand for, you know, all types of women. And yeah, I think that's important.
If I was one of those people sliding into your DMs, the question I'd probably ask is how to integrate color, because you're so good at it.
Thank you.
Like every time I'm on your Instagram, and again, this goes back to those amazing reference images you have and how you're pulling those color moments. For people who might be a little bit color shy, what's your best tip?
I think monochromatic dressing is the easiest way to do color, like a head to toe look. And it doesn't have to be the same color, but the shades of. So like if you're doing shades of pink or shades of red, or also like if you're a neutral person, mixing a color with a neutral. So like red looks great off of black and camel and navy. You know, pink looks great off of cream. So I think it's just about like, you know, you don't have it. It doesn't have to be everything. It can be mixed in with what you have, but mix it with a neutral, or, you know, do the head to toe look. And then color is definitely harder to get dressed with than neutrals. It's a trickier thing, but the result is more high impact. So it can be really incredible when you do it, because you definitely like walk into a room wearing color and like everybody notices you. You feel great. It's mood lifting, but it's not as easy to pull together. So it's, in my opinion, like days where I have a little more time to get dressed, I'll spend that time figuring out how to make that color work. And then when I have less time, it's like cream, camel, black and white, stripes, you know, it's really just about that. But it can be really beautiful if you can figure it out.
I love that. I'm also that person that like if I don't have time and I don't feel good, I'm like jeans, a colored sweater, I'm out the door.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's that immediate mood boost, but like, you know, low effort, high impact.
For sure. Or lipstick. I feel like lipstick, like colored lipstick, red lipstick, pink lipstick.
Love.
I don't know. I'm a fan.
I love that. I'm sure a red lip on you would be fab with the hair.
Thanks.
I'm so here for it. Are there accounts that you follow for inspiration? I feel like it's so funny asking you that, because I can tell you're such an analog person just based on how you're like compiling things. I'm sure like you're on Pinterest and all of that, but what's the like modern day iteration of that? Who are you following on Instagram that inspires you, whether that's through color, style, whatever it is?
I mean, it's so broad for me. I think just because my inspiration comes from a lot of different places, but I love artists. So I follow a lot of incredible artists like Danielle McKinney or Catherine Bernhardt, you know, incredible painters. I love to follow book accounts like Assorted Books and Idea Books, because they sell a lot of vintage books that are incredible. So, and they'll say when they're up for sale. So I'll see something and I'll be like, okay, I'm like sold. I bought that one, you know, because that's where I can get a lot of great images. Stylists are incredible. I feel like Heidi Bivens, Carla Welsh. I love them. I love like, you know, Tracy Ellis Ross. Like she has the most incredible style. So yeah, like so many different people.
I love the book hunt.
Yeah.
That to me is so inspiring, because I'm not someone that has a ton of books, but the idea of just like spending a night going through and getting some inspiration sounds weirdly appealing.
Yeah,
getting
for sure.
off my Instagram.
Yeah,
getting off Pinterest.
Interiors too. Like there's so many great accounts that are just like filled with vintage imageries from vintage interiors, and you know, and like Upstate Diary is a great one. Like they have all these incredible old references of like houses upstate, which is so cool.
As a creative director, obviously hearing your process here, I would very, very quickly get lost in a spiral of going through books for hours and hours and hours. Do you have a productivity hack that's been most helpful for you as someone who's a creative?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm an extreme multitasker. And so I do a lot of different things at the same time, or I might jump from, just by the nature of my job, because I'm involved in everything from like model casting to store design to product design. So like I'm kind of jumping, and I'm working on like 3 or 4 seasons at the same time. So there's a lot of like moving around, and those days are just like you got to just do them. But when it comes to actually creative time, like I really, when I'm being good to myself, I really try to siphon off time to do that. So there will be like a couple days in the week where I'll really focus on meetings and getting through sort of like all the things I need to get done. And then I'll try to block off like at least a few hours or a half day or a full day for creativity. And that can include anything from sitting in my office and, you know, pinning stuff up on the wall, looking through books, or it might be like actually getting out of the office and going to galleries and going to bookstores, because sometimes even like 2 hours just out in the world, sitting at a cafe and watching people walk by and watching what they're dressed in, like that is as valuable as looking on Instagram or Pinterest or looking through books, because it's like, I mean, honestly, sometimes it's more valuable because you really just see what everyone's wearing in the street. And I think just that it just reinvigorates you too. I think like sometimes with creatives, like it can get stale, because if you're just doing the same thing over and over again, sometimes you can get stuck. And I feel like for me, like, you know, I live in New York, but like long walks, like walking through the streets, walking to bookstores, walking to galleries, like I said, all of the museums, like all of these types of things that kind of like get you thinking, and not necessarily about fashion, but just about other creative, you know, other creative spaces. They will bring you back to what you need to get done in fashion.
I love the separation of time, because I find the same thing. I can't be creative and then execute like emails, all that in the same day.
Yeah.
One day for something, one day for like the computer day. It's
sure.
become something that I've had to be very dedicated on, because if I try to do them both, I will not be productive.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard, especially in today's world, right? With all the emails and everything, like you're expected to sort of answer texts, answer emails, be in meetings all at the same time. And so when you know that that's something that's just the way it is and you have to do it, it's better to kind of split your days.
And I've become that person that like thinks I need to respond to an email within like milliseconds.
Of course.
Christiana, my producer, can attest to that.
I think
she's
we
like,
all
hi.
have.
I'm like, hey, hi, I'm here, I'm present.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. If there was one thing that you could change about fashion today, what would it be?
I don't know. I mean, there's so many tricky things about fashion and so many great things. I think that something that I would change and is changing is really just, you know, this conversation around age diversity and like, you know, heroing women who are older, who are wiser, you know, who have lived a great life, and, you know, valuing them in the same way that we value, you know, all the other generations in sort of like what they want from us.
I love that. She has a Julia Louise Dreyfus.
Yeah.
I think I'm saying it right.
I have heard about this. Yeah.
So she has a podcast called Wiser Than I, or Wiser Than Me, something like that. And she'll interview women that are older than her, and then Wiser Than Me. It's called Wiser Than Me, guys. Just fact checked. At the end of the episode, she'll call her mom and tell her what she learned from the episode.
So cute. I love that.
So good. So good. I feel like you'd appreciate it.
I love that.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. It was such an honor to interview you. It's been on a bucket list for a long time, so excited that you were able to be here.
Thank you so much. I feel great to be here. I really appreciate it.